Life is too short for boring music lessons. And furthermore, my teaching career as a piano teacher is far too long for me to sit through boring piano lessons. So here's 3 tips for why my piano lessons are not boring, and hopefully great ways for you to energize yours as well. You know that wonderful feeling you get when your students are really engaged, they're really learning? It's this synergy that comes between student and teacher. That's what I'm aiming for. So picture a big red bullseye, and that's what we're trying to find today. Here are 3 great keys for why my piano students are not bored. I really focus on pacing the student quickly. I run the lessons as if it's a democracy, not a dictatorship. And then I make sure we have a lot of activities and resources because music is a joy to learn. All 3 of those fall under this great principle that's the rule of responsibility. This is my piano studio, so when students are here, if things aren't going well, no matter what they may or may not be bringing to the lesson with their attitude or their energy, it's still my responsibility. They're in my realm, and I have so much influence on how I can control the pace and the attitude of the lessons. I can't control all of it, but I can influence almost every single bit of it. With pacing, I have learned to submit to the rule that YouTube is king. My students are all here either because their parents are requiring them to do lessons or because they have a personal level of interest in music. So I just pretend like my time with them at lessons is similar to their time on YouTube. Don't like something, where they can click next, where they can tap ahead 10 seconds. That also goes to the second principle that I treat my lessons like a democracy. The students are allowed to vote. When their countenance falls, I just take note of that and I try to move on to a different activity as soon as possible. I know that could be argued that it's like catering too much to the students, but I think it's worth it. I'm offering a service that's a hobby, and it's something that students can always opt out of. This isn't school. They're not required to be there. So I like to make it as enjoyable of an atmosphere as I possibly can. Looking back at that first principle, pacing. I plan in most of my 30-minute lessons to cover anywhere from 10 to 15 activities. So that's usually just 1 or 2 minutes per activity or piece that we're working on. That may sound pretty fast-paced, but boy, it sure feels great for the students. We work on something for a little bit, touch on it, and move on to the next thing. Here's a great resource that I've relied on heavily when I'm trying to make sure that my pacing is good. When I get that bored look in one of my students, I grab this rhythm cards notebook and I work through rhythms with these. So we'll count rhythms like ta, 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 sh, ta, ta, using kind of that Kodai method, and it lets us work through a couple different ones. I've provided a link for these music cards in the description below. And they work through a couple different sets, like 8th notes, and which I use the rhythm pattern ti ti ta ta ta, ti ti ta, ti ti ta. So it lets students practice learning rhythm in a really painless way. Especially my younger boy students really love this because it feels a little bit percussive for them as we work through all of it. And of course, 16th notes are always a favorite. Ticky 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 ti ti ta, ticky ticky ti ti ticky ticky ta. So this quick stack of cards is a lifesaver for me when those students get that bored look in their eyes. I plop this up on the music stand, we read a few pages, and we're on to our next activity. Now, as you seek to treat your lessons like a democracy where the student is allowed to have a vote in what activity we're working on, here's a quick hack that has helped me with some of my younger students, especially the ones who have the wiggles. It allows me to maintain the direction of what we're going to cover during the lesson, but it lets them feel like they're in charge of choosing what we work on or how long we work on it. So I have laminated simple cardstock pages with the 9 or so activities that I want to focus on with the student that day. And then before the student comes, I cover those up with sticky notes. And as the student arrives, then they get to choose which sticky note they pull off, and whatever activity is underneath that is something that we do next. I'm still in the process of expanding my online video library, but I will make a video that shows some of these main exercises that I cover. And I've made one already that's just 3 simple exercises for beginner pianists. So if you want to click over to that, I'll make sure to link it up above or in the description below. So as you eliminate boredom from your lessons and continue to aim for those aha moments and that wonderful synergy you can develop with your students, the third principle you can really aim for is lots of activities because music is so enjoyable to learn. One of the lesson books that I use frequently had the idea of using flashcards to help students develop their skills with their finger numbers. So I made my own right hand deck and left hand deck, and it just has simple numbers. that the students can click through. I go ahead and laminate a lot of my supplies so that it'll last a bit longer, but I just print them on cardstock. We're working with left hand and right hand there. I also made a stack of cards that shows which hand position we're in. So I'll usually put a blue card up first, help the student find that hand position, and then I'll place the fingering number ones alongside that on the music stand. Those flashcards with note names on them are obviously a great way to work through learning the treble clef and bass clef notes, but one thing that I've added to that is just a simple tool that I place along the side, and it shows the students what the letter name is for all of the space notes, and I have a set for the line notes as well. So I think with a lot of these activities, what it comes to is building an effective music library where you have options. And as soon as you notice that a student is losing interest in an activity, you can go ahead and pivot to the next one, hopefully drawing their interest back to that. If you're curious about any of those other supplies that I'm using on a regular basis, I'll make sure to put a link down in the description below for my Amazon store that just shows which things I'm buying on Amazon that I found to be really helpful with my students. This melody card kit would be a great example of that. It holds a deck of, I don't know, about 50 or 70 cards that have melodies, and I use this once my students have learned to identify the note names, or if we're working on reading skips or steps, then I'm able to throw those up there. It's great for learning rhythms as well. Another useful resource to have on hand. When I combine this handful of resources, as well as just bringing my own energy and desire to have kind of a vibrant, creative atmosphere to the lessons, students tend to respond really well to that. Chances are, if my students are bored, I'm bored too. So I try to always follow a rule that if I have 2 weeks where we have a kind of slump in our learning experience, then I need to take some time outside of lessons to revamp and plan something that'll help the next lesson get off to a good start. I'm so glad you found my video channel. Like I said, I teach lessons, piano, violin, and guitar in my home, and it's been such a great experience that I'm trying to create a video library that helps share some of the systems that I've found to be really effective with my teaching. I have a master's in piano pedagogy as my background, so that kind of fuels a lot of the information that I'm providing, and I'm so glad to offer these for free online. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll take a minute to just like or subscribe. It helps YouTube know that my video is helpful for you, and it'll help it make it more visible for others who are searching for similar topics. I hope something in this video helped hit the target for you today. I'm so glad you're a like-minded music teacher who's aiming for a good level of engagement with your students. Have fun making music. I almost forgot to share. Really, my last ditch thing that helps students stay engaged, my toughest students that just are dragging their feet about learning piano, is having an incentive program. This can really help momentum get going in the right direction. So I use music bucks and I provide prize baskets, and I do have a simple video about that. So I hope you'll click over and explore that as well. It can really kickstart some good momentum for some otherwise tired piano students.